You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
There you go. So it's we usually do these shows on the Monday night, and we say, well, it's Monday again, back to the beginning of the week, and it's boring. Nothing's happened. That the weather is dark, dull, raining outside. But hey, it was dull, wet yesterday. But Robbie, he didn't care. He was a party animal. Robbie's a big St Mirren fan. If you lived up in Mars for the past 20 years. But yeah, so Robbie, I was gonna say, when we come on the show, I always say, "How are you?" But I thought, no, that's a bit of a daft question to ask a Saints fan after yesterday.
Michael, I think the only way I can really describe yesterday, and I've been trying to think of ways and, been trying to sum it up into words. I think the only thing you can say is that I truly believe it's the best day in my football and watching life. And that everything into one just summed up yesterday. Everything since 2022, since Robinson arrived. We've waited 12 years to get our hands back on that trophy. We've only done it twice now. But the second time felt as special as the first in 2013. I've said it to a few people, Michael. I was 8 the last time we won this in 2013 when Jim Goodwin get his hands on the cup. Obviously, I know he was there yesterday watching on. But now real legends have been made. Male legends, Jonah Ayunga, Robinson, they all write themselves into the history books. And Michael, what a night last night was in Paisley. It felt a real togetherness everywhere you went around Paisley last night. And it says a lot that the fans didn't even go to the stadium until probably about 40 minutes after the game. That's how long we stayed in there and celebrated for. But every single second was so worth it.
Well, I mean, Robbie's one of my good mates. We hang out together and stuff like that. But we're not going to now because Robbie's basically just reminding me of when St Mirren last won the cup. He was 8. I must have been about 15 or 16, so that makes me feel very, very old. But no, I mean, listen, I don't have to tell you the score. I'll tell Robbie again. It was St Mirren 3, Celtic 1, and it could have been more, actually, every time St Mirren went forward. And look, listen, I mean, people's got to comment on here about how bad Celtic were, but I'm going to focus on how good St Mirren was yesterday.
I think that's the best thing to focus on, Michael. As you've probably noticed in the last sort of 12 hours, shall we say, I've become a bit insufferable at times. I'm a very smiling chap. I'm not usually like this. It wasn't long ago, Michael. I was on the show complaining about how we lost 3-1 to Stephen Presley's Dundee at the ends, and we were dropping points. We didn't know when the next one was coming, but I think this last week's just really summed up how together the whole squad is, and I think that is the word I'd use. Look, we all had it in our heads, Michael. We spoke about it on the show on Friday. There was a slight feeling about this game, considering everything that was gone for St Mirren on this occasion. I was never going to be fully on the side of, coming on the show and saying, "Oh, we're going to win, we're going to do it, we're going to batter Celtic," because you're playing Celtic, you're playing financially the best team in Scotland, you're playing the team that have got millions and millions and millions of pounds worth of players sitting on the starting 11 and bench. That you've got the guys that have continued to win cups at hand and win Premiership titles, but it just had that feeling to it this weekend. It felt like this was the time, and every single player on that pitch delivered, Michael. I know we'll get into speaking about the game and all that sort of stuff, but honestly, I could not be any more proud of every single player on that pitch. And I think that game just showed, I think it showed how much St Mirren have grown. Michael, there was 14,000 St Mirren fans in there compared to the 35,000 Celtic fans, let's say. We outsung them that whole game. And I'm not trying to be, biased, obviously being a St Mirren fan being there. Of course, I'm going to say that, but it was true. We outsung, we outfought them on the pitch and off the pitch. And ultimately, we deserved it at the end.
I mean, I think on Friday to you, Robbie and Reagan was on the show. The first goal was crucial in the game, but I didn't think the goal was going to come that early in the game. And I mean, that was from a Celtic point of view, it was quite bad, the defending and stuff like that. Free header, but I mean, what a goal.
Excellent. Robinson said it. We started off far too slow in the semi-final. It took us about 20 minutes to get into the game against Motherwell, but we went out flying. The traps were out so early. We did really well to push up the pitch actually in the first minute, because it is another long boy at the tap, and I don't know what Liam Scales is sort of trying, to be honest with you. I think that's probably the story of his game, Michael, for being honest, but it's a brilliant ball in for Keanu Bacchus. A player that I probably touted to start on the bench, to be honest with you, before the game, but it was a lovely ball in, and a really, really, really good header for Marcus Fraser as well. You sort of notice, Michael, when you watch it back, I believe it was Gogic and Freckleton, they start where Fraser ends up, and then they drag two Celtic players away, leaving Fraser that gap to run into. It's so smart, it was so well executed, and Michael, you've got to ask the question again. When is Nancy going to hire a set piece coach? Because that's 3 games in a row Celtic have been done off of set pieces.
Yeah, no. So if you were at the game yesterday, if you were a Celtic or St Mirren fan, there's no your comments in the chat. If you were a St Mirren fan, you'd probably still be in bed after last night's celebrations, because I mean, it was a horrible night, Robbie, and horrible day at the game. But obviously, you didn't care about that. It was always bringing the cup back to Paisley.
Aye, Michael, it could have been snowing, it could have been thunder, it could have been anything. It didn't stop the St Mirren fans that were there. I was a bit conscious the night before. I don't know where people are sort of watching for, but it was very, very rainy in Paisley, put it that way. It was worse. It almost felt like when Scotland played Georgia that time. Remember how bad the rain was in that game? And it almost made me think, surely this isn't going to get called off, because that's the last thing I wanted. But I think it was always going to go ahead. And it really didn't matter. Every sort of St Mirren fan came out in their numbers. There wasn't many gaps I could spot in the crowd. It just felt so good. And we kept the atmosphere going for the full 90 minutes as well. And I think that's what the team needed. We did feel like a 12th man, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, no, and I was blunt to see Hampden fill, because usually in finals where if it was Aberdeen or whatever, they wouldn't take up the full kind of like allocation, but St Mirren done it and make it a real kind of atmosphere yesterday.
Aye, it really did feel like a final. It also didn't feel like we were outnumbered when you were actually in there. It felt like we had every right to be there. The tifo created by the North Bank and every volunteer that helped get a game was sensational. I mean, just everything, Michael, in Hampden. I don't know if you've got a chance to hear it. I know one of the Misery Hunters, Mark Jordan, was doing St Mirren TV commentary. I mean, the introduction when the teams walked out was just spine-tingling stuff. It was sensational. Everything built up to that moment, 12 years. I know I've not been exactly watching the full 12 years. Obviously, I'm still quite young. I got into football around about the 2016-17 season. I know the club's been through, 2010, the cup final we lost to Rangers after them being down to, I think it was 9 men. Then for winning the cup, we've had relegation. We've been up. We've went through the Alan Stubbs era. I felt like we've truly experienced all. We've experienced top 6 heartbreak away to Hamilton on the last day of the season. We have literally experienced everything. And since Robinson came in 2022, it's just felt like a roller coaster going up, and it doesn't feel like it's stopped anytime soon. And I know this doesn't last forever, but Michael, I'm going to enjoy every second of it while it's here.
Yeah, definitely. And it's maybe like time lucky for St Mirren this season, because as we spoke about on the show on Friday, and take the recent game against Celtic at St Mirren Park. A lot of people said to me at St Mirren Park. A lot of people said to me, St Mirren, St Mirren would get they should get a point out of that game, but I don't know. I think this to you, Robbie. I think Robbie's. I think St Mirren could have got 3 points out of that game. Again, Celtic. Obviously McGregor scored a brilliant goal at the end of the game, but I think yesterday that made up for that game. Just about what 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Michael, now you're looking back and going, right, well, I'm taking the 2 late goals the last 2 games against Celtic to win the cup. You know what I mean? You're right. I mean, you go back even further than that. You go back to last season when we were literally a minute away from beating Celtic at Celtic Park on the final day of the season. It's, it spoiled the celebrations, and then James Forrest pops up with a goal. Now you've got, as you mentioned there at Celtic Park earlier in the season, you've got McCowan's deflected strike. You also spoke about the game in Paisley, where we probably should have won, but all that doesn't matter now. We've got to hand and we've won the cup, which I still just can't believe. And I think everything now has just been so worth it.
Yeah, no, and obviously, I mean, St Mirren is steadily finding their feet. Maybe in football terms, they would say streetwise in terms of the cups. Winning the cup, making the top 6 3 times now, and also been in Europe last season. And obviously, you would want to replicate that next season as well. It's got a long way to go, right enough.
Aye, there's still a long way to go. And look, we'll sort of, I'm sure after all the celebrations this week, we'll turn our attention back to the league and hopefully try and rebuild on that form. But yeah, it's so conventional that you mentioned the 3 in a row kind of stuff, because it's now Robinson's third cup final against Celtic. The 2 under Motherwell lost. And it's the one thing this guy's been missing his whole managerial career. He's done so well. He's guided Motherwell to third, put them into Europe. He's brought us into Europe. He's got us 3 consecutive top 6s. He just needed that bit of silverware. And Michael, it might be a controversial opinion, but for me, Robinson's the best manager in Scotland right now. And I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt about that, to be honest. That guy, for me, what he's done with Motherwell under the budget of them and now the budget that we've got, it's got to be applauded, and people have really got to start taking this guy seriously. And by the way, for our sake, I hope they don't, because my worry is now you're looking at guys like Shamal George, who will not get the amount of credit he deserves. Yesterday, I thought he made some tremendous saves, but you're now looking at guys like George, Robinson, Phillips, Gogic. How long are we going to be able to hold on to these guys for? When does it get to a point where Robinson gets pulled away from us, and when does it get to a point where Gogic leaves and stuff like that? I'm not thinking about that right now because I'm trying to enjoy this, but it is questions that we need to consider in the future, because realistically, Robinson's far too good for this level.
Let's speak about the budget then, Robbie, right? Because when we talk about budgets, we always talk about maybe like St Mirren, Motherwell, Livingston, teams in the bottom half of the league as well. And, we always say that money is good to get big players, big time players. It's been at World Cups and all the rest of it as well. But I mean, St Mirren winning the cup and also being in Europe as well, making the top 6 3 times with a less of a budget. I mean, I said to John Negan on Friday, I think St Mirren was kind of like punching above their weight in terms of making the top 6 3 times, getting into Europe, obviously winning the cup now. And it always comes back to the budget, Robbie, right? It's amazing I'm a big advocate, as you know, about this one, but it's amazing what you can do with less than the budget compared to, Celtic, Rangers and Hearts in Scotland. If you kind of use your youth academy and loan system the right way, and Robertson's got that.
I mean, when you think about, and excuse the ice cream truck that's outside right now, blowing its horns, but when you look down in England and you look at Crystal Palace and what they managed to achieve in the FA Cup, by simply making a transfer routine or signing these guys that aren't exactly brilliant players, that they don't come from brilliant backgrounds, they're very much lost in their ways. They come in, you develop them, you get them the right game time, and suddenly it clicks. That's what's been replicated at St Mirren. Robinson's, I know that it's been banged on about so much by John Needham and Robinson and everybody else, but we don't have the facilities to go out and sign excellent players. We can't go and spend $3.5 million on a ballot. We should like Celtic can. We can't afford to do that type of stuff. But what we do is we sign players that will give 110%. And Michael, you've got to say every single player on that pitch did give 110% yesterday. I really thought every player to a man was just superb, and everybody deserved it as well. And a guy like Dan Lundula, who has got so much criticism down south, and it does feel that way for a lot of the players that have come up here. They always get criticised down in England, but they've come up here and they've shown why they're good players. They clearly trust Robinson. And Robinson doesn't like to take a lot of accountability, and he doesn't look for a lot of attention, as I said. But the guy's got to take one hell of an applause, because what that guy's done for this club in 3 years is actually extraordinary when you actually pull back and look at it. And it will only be until he leaves that we'll properly appreciate how good a job he's done. Well, the outside world, because I think I can speak for every single fan when I say we know how good a job this guy's done, but until he leaves this club, I don't think it'll be fully appreciated by the media and everybody else in Scotland.
I think it's good for I'm a big advocate about Scottish football, right, Robbie? That's why we kind of do the show, right? But it must be quite boring for you in terms of a St Mirren fan. Celtic winning the cup, Rangers winning the double, Celtic winning, you know what I mean? Whereas we see in this kind of like fishbowl, as I call it sometimes, but it's very good for a kind of, don't take this the wrong way, Robbie, but a lesser team to win it outside of the big two.
Oh, no, 100%, Michael. You look at Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup last season, it was a very, very good day for Scottish football that day, because it proved that it's not just Celtic and Rangers going to win trophies. Obviously, Celtic and Rangers in itself is a very different conversation the last few years. The Rangers have had their difficulties, but historically they're both known for winning all the trophies. It just bleeds so much better for Scottish football. We've now got St Mirren won the League Cup. You've now got Hearts sitting top of the league. They might be able to go in and do something magical. Celtic keep dropping points. And then, the Scottish Cup's wide open. Who knows who can win the Scottish Cup at this point? It could literally be any of the teams left. So it's so much better for the game. Guys, teams like St Mirren, teams like Motherwell, Falkirk, for example. Falkirk's a brilliant example. A team that have gone back-to-back promotions and now sitting battling for the top six. That's got to be well respected. That it makes the game a lot better. And Michael, you're now noticing, right? You look back at some previous results, and we've taken a few batterings after Celtic and Rangers early years. No team fears playing Celtic and Rangers anymore. And that makes the game so much more enjoyable. How many times have we watched teams go to Celtic Park or Ibrox and set up with a back five, with a low line, try to avoid as much pressure as possible and try and nick something at the game? But now every team's gone to Celtic Park and Ibrox or playing Rangers and Celtic at some point and actually gone for it and actually giving them a game, and it's making the league so much more enjoyable. Of course, for Celtic fans like Reagan and Ethan and Rangers fans like Alex, that'll not be enjoyable. They don't want that. They want to be dominating. They want to be winning trophies. But for the rest of the league, it's just brilliant.
There's Alex saying, well done to Robbie. I bet when people says well done to you, you're thinking, well, I never scored that penalty yesterday at Hampden and stuff like that. So, yeah, Alex is off to the game at Ibrox tonight between Rangers and Hibs. We'll dive into that, and we'll get the team news from Ibrox soon as well. It's a quarter-to-8 kick-off as well.
Aye, and Michael, if I can just say, Alex, well done on your work yesterday. Some really, really good content put out. I really actually enjoyed that. That made my night when I get home and was watching. But I think he's saying congratulations, Michael, because I actually can't believe I'm on this show with my throat, to be honest with you. The throat's taken one hell of a beating in the last 12 hours. So I'm surprised I'm here. But no, thank you, Alex. I think, I think it's good as well, Michael. We're speaking about other teams doing well, but how nice was it to see some of the, what's the right word, the fan media, I'll say, being there and being able to cover this type of game and being able to make content like that, because Alex made some really good content and there was a lot of other people that did as well.
Yeah, no, check Alec out on Alec Alex out on TikTok, he gets play a lot of good content, and he does his daily tactics as well, keeping us up to date with Scottish football. So yeah, I suppose well done to both of you. Both of you yesterday, I feel like they're all going out here. But maybe he's saying well done to you because you have to put up with me for an hour. I'm not sure on Monday night. Hopefully it's not Alex. If it is, then we'll get back on the show. No, I'm on the keg. Yep. So Alex was saying St Mirren were excellent. There was a little period after Celtic scored when they cut St Mirren open, and yeah, I kind of agree with that because obviously I don't know if you would agree, Robbie, but when St Mirren scored the goal, you're thinking, all right, okay, yep, what's going to happen now? But St Mirren lost away for about a good maybe 25 minutes in that first half.
Aye, no, 100%. After Rio Hatate scored, which by the way, you've got to give credit where credit's due. It's a wonderful ball for Kieran Tierney for the left-hand side. Hatate with actually a very nice finish, which I think we'll be more annoyed if we didn't defend it better, but like you've got to give credit where credit's due. It was a nice work goal by Celtic, and at that point, I don't know about you, Michael, but it felt to me like everything Celtic were trying to do was going down Kieran Tierney and Taneki's side. I felt every attack was in that area, and they were getting a lot of joy out of it as well in the first half. I thought. Luckily, we tightened it up after the sort of first half into the second and looked a lot sharper. But I was really worried sitting inside Hampden after about the third time Tierney Bretton down there gone. They're getting a lot of joy down that side. We need to try and shorten that up.
Yeah, no, I think when Celtic changed the system, well, not changed the system, but also make the subs, I think that may get a bit more of a kind of, I don't want to say easy state for St Mirren because obviously you still have to do the job, but actually changed the game because Celtic were on top at that point.
Aye, and look, even though Celtic were on top, and I keep saying this, where all that Celtic had the ball, again, the ball doesn't get you, and the ball doesn't guarantee you're going to win games. Celtic really struggled creatively. In my opinion, I thought they struggled to create chances. I thought when Ian Atchell left the pitch, they especially struggled. And to me, Michael, I never felt like Celtic were going to score more than one in the game. And I said to you guys on Friday, the likelihood is Celtic are going to score a goal, so we're going to need to outscore them. And we did that ultimately, but we also did it in a way that was really convincing. It really just did not feel like Celtic were going to score more than one goal in that game.
Yeah, no, exactly. As well, were you surprised how St Mirren's tactics was to come out and score and there the goal? Were you surprised St Mirren would be kind of like the game plan was to kind of sit in, but maybe Stephen Robertson would be looking at the last Celtic. The last two Celtic performances and go, their confidence isn't very high. They've got a manager, the fans are fighting with the board and all that. Let's just get at Celtic for the first whistle.
And I thought we did, Michael, if I'm being honest, and I'm trying to take my black and white tinted specs off as much as possible and try and look at it from a neutral point of view in terms of the actual game. But to me, it felt like we attacked really, really well. We were very open at the back, which surprised me a bit. I mean, we speak about the team sheets all the time. I was more interested to see what Celtic were going to line up with, because was it going to be a back four? Was it going to be a back three? What was Nancy going to change? And when I seen the lineup, I initially thought 4-3-3. That was the very first thing that popped into my head. I was like, he's finally changed the system. He's reverted back to what O'Neill was playing. He's went back to the basics, but when you actually watch the game, I still can't get my head around what he played. I mean, Scales was playing left wing, Ralston was playing right centre back. There was so many decisions, Michael, that just baffled me completely in the game. And I'm going to be honest with you, I know we'll get into sort of talking about Celtic soon, but curtains are closing very quickly for Wilfred Nancy now. The man just does not look like he has a clue tactically in a game. He doesn't look like he knows how to change a game, how to help Celtic, how to make them better. And ultimately that played into our hands. And I'm not trying to take any credit away from us, because we controlled the game very well in the second half especially. We went at Celtic, we weren't scared to pop the ball, but we were trying to create chances. And it honestly could have been ending by full time. So, full credit's got to go to us on the day, because we showed up, we put in the work, we put in the belief that every single player has, and we got our just rewards for it.
Yep, Alex is now away to Ibrox for a quarter-to-8 kick-off. We'll get the team news soon from Rangers against Hibs. That's going to be a very interesting game, because I think the last time Hibs came to Ibrox, they gave a scare to Rangers. But we'll go into that game and the rest of the games over the weekend. And also, it wouldn't be a new week in Scottish football with a Premiership club looking for a new manager, and you'll be hoping it's not Stephen Robinson that's going down to Ayrshire as well. But I mean, as a St Mirren fan, you would be running out of words to sum up Stephen Robertson, because he's done a brilliant job with less of a budget. But imagine Robertson having a big budget to use.
I keep saying this in the debate, and I know what Alex's answer is, and he said it on the show before. Yeah. Robinson can more than handle Celtic or Rangers at this, but I'm convinced Robinson could get on well at any club in this league. That's how much I rate Robinson. I think he's such a good manager, and he's very adaptable as well. He is, as much as people like to say, he likes to play one way, and he likes these big physical guys. I don't think Robinson would have any negatives managing a team like Celtic or Rangers, in my opinion. I think he's a very good manager, and I think that'll give him a boost as well, Michael. The one thing missing out his cabinet all these years is a trophy, and now he's got his hands on that, and it's fair to say, Michael, he really enjoyed that yesterday. I think he ran more than the players did at some points in that game, to be honest with you. He was up and down after the game, and you can just see what it meant to him. It meant literally everything. And his speech after the game at the Town Hall in Paisley, that you could tell that even meant more to him, because that was just, I think that just summed up his 3 years in charge, and I've loved every single second of it.
Okay, so I don't want to take the shine off it, Robbie. Yesterday for you, we'll come back to speak about St Mirren in a minute. But as I say, how St Mirren were brilliant and Celtic were the total opposite. You mentioned about Nancy there. He's got a big game on Wednesday night against Dundee United, and albeit, Robbie, and I don't know if you saw this on Talk Sport today, Martin O'Neill basically said if he was offered the job until after the cup final, he would have been happily having to stay on at Celtic. The rest is history. He just spent about 15 minutes with Nancy when he was appointed. Things aren't right at Celtic Park at the moment, Robbie, and it's been not right for a while. I mean, the cup final side, but I mean, since maybe Rodgers has left, or maybe since the transfer window in the summer.
First of all, Michael, I did watch the full Martin O'Neill Talk Sport show this morning. I was really interested to see what he had to say. There was two main quotes I took for that. One was the one that you mentioned about, if he was offered the job, he would have happily stayed. And then he spoke about pleading, he basically pleaded the Celtic fans gave Nancy a bit of time. And I think he sort of understands that. He did mention his time at, I think it was Leicester, and how he didn't win for the opening 10 games, and then managed to turn it around. So look, the Nancy situation is really weird. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it more as the weeks develop, but let's be honest, I think Dundee United have gained a bit of an edge now. Jim Goodwin was there. He got to watch Celtic in action live, go to do a wee bit of scouting work, I'm sure, for their upcoming game. And any team that plays Celtic right now should fancy their chances. I don't really see why not, especially at your own ground. And I get it, it's not really been going too well for Dundee United right now. They're sort of iffy on form. And right enough, it was a good point against Motherwell, in really bad conditions, by the way. But I think he'll be fancying that against Celtic. And look, if you're going to bet, you're going to bet the now. And it really does depend what type of Celtic team go, because I mean, Michael, what choice does Nancy have now? Does he stick with his guns all the way? Does he really believe in his philosophy that much that he's willing to risk his job at it? We've heard so many stories of the last 24 hours about people apparently having talks to Nancy. Obviously, we don't know. We're never going to know. But it really is coming down to do or die for Nancy now. He needs to change something. He needs to get it right, or else his job is, it's thin. And can I just say as well, I never want to put a dampener on the night, and the last night what we had was so special, but I'm not going to go into debt for it, and I don't want to. But to everybody affected last night, and then it happened on the negative side, I hope everybody's all right, and everybody's safe, and everybody did have a good night, because Michael, you know the stories, we've heard what's happened, and it's never nice. You never want a final to be ruined like that. And I'm glad majority of fans are all right and everything went smoothly, but I just thought I'd fling that in there. But Michael Nancy's on a bit of a sugar peg right now.
Yeah, no. When you sent me that message last night, Robbie, I was a bit kind of sad, because obviously you waited so many years to win the cup. You deserved the winning of the cup as well, and to be spoiled by that after the game. Football fans are a bit fickle at times as well. But what I was going to ask you, Robbie, was all right. So we knew Nancy was coming to the job, right? And they knew, 3 big games coming up, right? And what did you do? The first day he came in, he changed the system, right? And I know people think that, well, when is the best time to change the system? But look, listen, if you know that you've have 3 big games, maybe 2 big games, take out the Roma game, because anybody could get beat off for Roma, right? But what would you have done, Robbie? You would actually implement changing your system, but wait until after these games. But don't do it before the Heart game, and certainly before cup final. Maybe leave it until you have more time to work with the players on the park, but don't do that when you're just in the door for God's sake after one day, and he's actually changing the system.
Aye, and look, Michael, if we take it one step back, if I was Celtic manager, I'd fling everything against Sean Maloney back in the door. That would have been my point of action. I would have been, we need somebody that knows this game really well, and Sean Maloney for me was the perfect guy. He didn't do that. He stuck with his own philosophy, and again, we've spoken about it on the show. I can see why managers are very stubborn in today's game. They like to play the way they like to play. It's why some of the greatest managers of all time have been around, like Jose and Pep and Klopp, because they believe in their own philosophy. And I'm not for 1 minute comparing Buffett and Nancy to any of them, but managers, they believe in their way. They believe that playing their way is going to get them trophies, it's going to get them wins. And when it doesn't, it must hurt. And I can imagine it hurts for Nancy. And I think it's very, very harsh for Celtic fans to blame Nancy for all of this. I think it's very harsh. I don't agree that it is all his fault. This has been building up for months. Brendan Rodgers jumped ship and left the Celtic door because he knew this was going to happen. Yeah. In my opinion, Brendan Rodgers knew that it was only a matter of time before everything that's happened with the board kicks off. And it was going to take a result like this to really push the Celtic fans. And I think they have been pushed now. We've seen the scenes outside Celtic Park last night. They were far from happy. I can only imagine what it's going to be like if they drop points at Paradise. This has been completely building up, and it's all on the board. As much as fans want to go there and blame Nancy, and we can put a bit of blame on him because tactically he's not getting it right, and he doesn't know how to change a game, and he's talking about it's not about winning trophies, which is such a bad mentality to have when you're managing Celtic. Everything that's happened in the last year has been on that Celtic board, and it doesn't matter what way you look at it. The business, the recruitment that's been done, the kicking fan media out of the men's and women's game, the no answering questions at AGM meetings, the treating fans like they're not a part of the club. Everything has been building up to that moment, and when they lost and it went 3-1, you've seen exactly what Celtic fans thought, because they all left. None of them, there was not a single Celtic fan left in that stadium to watch their players receive the runners-up medal, because they don't care, and the owners don't care either, and that's truly my opinion. And whether Celtic fans who are maybe better knowledge want to challenge me on that, feel free, put a comment in, let us know what you think. But in my opinion, that Celtic board could not care one bit about that result last night. They couldn't. I honestly don't think they care, because to guys like Dermot Desmond, it's just another bit of money in their pocket for cup final tickets. That he's probably laughing on the way to the bank, to be honest.
By the way, I know it's a bit of you're not really bothered about it, but I don't know why the St Mirren players never climbed the staircase to get the cup. I thought it was a bit weird. You get St Mirren getting the cup in the on the park after the game, but I don't know if anybody knows that or whatever. But I mean, I don't suppose you would care about that. On your point about the board, right? Obviously, we can spend from now until maybe Wednesday night, now till like Boxing Day, and Boxing Day is a good thing talking about the Celtic board at the minute as well. But like, so are you maybe saying, I'm not putting words into your mouth because I would never do that to anybody, but are you basically saying that the board should have kind of, even though they brought Rodgers back, but would you say that the board was kind of a bit kind of suspect about Rodgers coming back because of what he did the first time round?
I think so. I think in some respect, look, a manager leaving you halfway through a season is always going to be difficult. And look, Rodgers, I mean, look, every Celtic fan's got an opinion about Brendan, and some like him, some don't, and that's the way football's going to be. Fans are allowed an opinion, that's why we watch it. But to me, Brendan knew something was wrong, I think, as soon as he stepped back in the door. I think he knew that something wasn't right. I think the way he's personally been treated, and by the way, this is just my opinion, by the way, just to clarify before I say this, I think something's went wrong with the recruitment side of things that he's not been happy with. I think he maybe expected a bit more off the board when he came back in the door. And let's be honest, Michael, for what we can gather as fans and people that watch the game, and we work in the media side of things, for what we can gather, the board don't care. I think that's as simple as it's put. The board do not care. They don't, because if they cared about the club, if they cared about the fans, they'd be a lot more open to communicating, and they take a lot more of the blame as well. And it's the one thing the Celtic board haven't done. They've not took blame for their actions. They've not took blame for poor recruitment, which has happened for the last couple seasons, you'd say. And it's why Celtic are in a situation they're in right now. So I also think there's a side to it where potentially Brendan Rodgers is maybe been at the wrong. If you get me, I think maybe he's done stuff at his second tenure that the board haven't been happy with. But that board, the fact they are still not willing to take accountability, I think shows it all, really.
Let's speak about the game yesterday then, Bobby, as well. As I said, Celtic had 20 minutes spell after St Mirren scored the opening goal. Celtic came in back into the game as well. But I mean, how do you go from winning, was it 5 games out of 5? Martin O'Neill was in charge, and OK Michelin, right? But and then OK, it wasn't brilliant football, but at least Celtic were still winning games, right? So how do you go from winning games to a performance like that against Hearts, and then maybe Roma? But as I say, maybe you can give Celtic a pass for that game, because anybody can get beat off Roma. You know what I mean? That's such a good team. By the way, we've got team news at Ibroxville. Got to give you that soon. But how can you go from beating Dundee, OK, the bottom of the league, but you still scored a lot of goals in that game? The feel good factor was up again, and then when Nancy comes in, what is it, 3 days later, you're playing against Hearts, you're at home, you're up for the game, and it shocked to pieces.
I think the best managers in football are the ones that know how to motivate players. And let's be honest, Martin O'Neill's one hell of a motivator. You only need to listen to player interviews to understand how good he is at doing that. And that's how you get players up for it. But in terms of since Nancy's come in, it's only felt like the board situation's getting worse. And it still feels like that, especially after last night. So, let's not be oblivious to the fact that the players are going to be seeing this. The players know what's going on online. They'll be reading the tweets. They'll be reading the comments. They'll know exactly how the fans are feeling. And now the fans are starting to turn on the players, Michael. I feel like I can read the Celtic fans, they're very unhappy with most of that starting 11 for yesterday, and rightly so, because it did not look like a Celtic team. So you combine the fact that the players will be so low in mentality because they feel like they're not doing good enough. They felt like they were on a real high, and then to suddenly go and lose to Hearts when your new manager puts in. Maybe Nancy's not a very good man motivator. We don't know, but we can only base Nancy off of what we've seen him, or what we've heard of him doing on the MLS. And as respectful as it is that he has won things earlier and he has been given Manager of the Year, we didn't get told how good a man motivator he is. Most Columbus Crew fans you speak to will talk about how he won the cup, how he likes to play, young players, and how he likes to develop them. Not one Columbus Crew fan talked about how good a man manager he is and how good he is at getting players up for big games. And he's got that inexperience. A cup finals, his words. He's barely played in them. He doesn't believe in winning trophies. That's apparently not his thing. That's not what it's all about for him. So you mix all this together, Michael, it's an absolute recipe for disaster. And you don't see it getting better for Nancy at this moment as we sit here on the show. I'm sure you'd agree that right now things don't look like they're going to get any better until they get even more worse. And the only way it gets even more worse at this point is if Celtic sack Nancy and get Martin O'Neill back, because then you're looking at the board and you're going, right, but you've just told him he wasn't good enough to coach the next 3 games. You say you don't need him anymore, and now you want him back. Like, well, what does that tell you about the board? So everything right now, I think that's all I could say, Michael. Everything right now at Celtic Park, everything that's going on with the board, the players, the manager, all of that rolled into one is an absolute recipe for disaster, and a disaster it is because it's just going to get worse in my opinion.
Winning's a habit, but also losing is a habit as well, Robbie.
Aye, losing is a big habit, as I've figured it before the last sort of 3 games. When you get into that losing mentality, it's not great, and it's really hard to get out of it. But it just feels so weird, the switch. And look, here's the thing for me, Michael, right? And a lot of Celtic fans will say, oh, Martin O'Neill would have won 2 out of the 3 games. We don't know. Retrospect's such a beautiful thing because we don't know how Martin O'Neill could have lost to Hearts and lost to us. And then suddenly what we start to say about him, and Ploy would have lost to Roma, to be honest with you. Any team in Scotland would have far too good. But he might have lost it 2 games. There's nothing suggesting that he would have ended up winning because he was getting wins at Celtic, and him and Maloney linked up really, really well. But, he wasn't playing excellent stuff. It wasn't like Celtic were unbeatable. It wasn't like they were, Brendan Rodgers the first time with Ange Postecoglou when he was winning trophies at Celtic. It wasn't an unbeatable super team. It was very much a team that were grinding out results. Nancy's come in and he doesn't look capable of doing that, and I think the curtain is sort of very quickly closing on his career. And if they lose on Wednesday, which I'm sure we'll talk about on Wednesday before the games, the Celtic fans will be on the show and various other shows, and it'll all be about Nancy out. And it won't surprise me if there's protest at Celtic Park demanding they get sacked as well.
Yeah, okay, let's but before we talk about the Rangers game tonight, there wasn't any kind of player that kind of stood out for Celtic yesterday. And well, that's a bit daft because they get beat in the game, and then McGregor get put over by Nancy twice during the game. I don't know if you saw that, Robbie. As well, without the tactics ball this time. he must not use it when it's wet, as well. But that's embarrassing in itself. So yeah, I think that the biggest thing that Celtic would want to go back to is a game on Wednesday night up at Dundee United, because obviously if you wait a full week, people will have a say and all that. But I think the best way to basically shut up your critics is basically go in the park and win. And they've got to win on Wednesday night because it's one of Celtic's game in hands.
Aye. First of all, I did see that with Callum McGregor the 2 times, and I've never seen a group of players look so disorganised and so confused as well. I thought, that it's hard to speak about positives for Celtic for that game. One of the negatives I touch on again is Kasper Schmeichel. That and look, it was a brilliant ball for Gogic and a really, really, really good header for Jonah Ayunga. But if Kasper Schmeichel can actually come off his line, he probably catches that and it doesn't happen. So, it's another, for me, poor mistake for him. But on to the game on Wednesday, after what I've just seen for the weather forecast, Michael, it's to be raining as well on Wednesday night in Dundee. So that's probably not going to help Celtic, to be honest with you. I don't think they're going to enjoy getting out of Tannadice on a wet Wednesday night. I imagine that's the last thing the players on Nancy wants, but it is very much as simple as Celtic must win. If Celtic lose and Hearts win, I don't even know if they play on Wednesday. They might play on the Saturday, but
no, it's only the Celtic game on Wednesday, Robbie.
Right, okay. Aye, right. So it's one of the games in Holland. Right, well, my point is that if Celtic lose and Hearts keep that gap at the top of the league to where it currently is, I can only imagine, Michael, what the Celtic fans are going to be like at Celtic Park on Wednesday night if that happens, because they will be demanding answers for the board at a time when the board aren't talking to the fans right now, and let's be honest, they're not communicating at all. So, I think Wednesday night is absolutely vital for the Celtic board, the players and the manager, and especially the manager, because let's be honest, Michael, as much as you released that article about, managers needing time to settle in, if Celtic lose 4 consecutive games in a row, he's got to go. He's just got to, and I'm all for giving managers time. I truly believe Kettlewell would turn that around, but it obviously didn't, unfortunately, and they ended up getting sacked. But this situation feels different to any other normal managerial appointment.
I mean, the only thing you would back up with, Robbie, is not 4 league games, it's 4 defining games that define your season. A European game that you've got to win. Okay, it's against Roma, a big game against Hearts, and a massive game against your team, St Mirren, as well. But let's just park that one there. St Mirren 3, Celtic 1, and half of Paisley was a bank holiday today, I think, as well. Before we dive into the first managerial casualty of the season, is that right? Of the season. Let's go to Ibrox, because Robbie has got the team news for the game Rangers and Hibs.
Michael, first of all, I did not know this game wasn't on telly. I was so convinced this game was going to be shown on some sort of telly platform, and it's no, which is actually kind of gutting. I was really excited to watch this, but I've been sat here for 5 minutes since I found this team sheet, trying to come up with what Rangers are playing. Right, I'll read this team out to you. So it's going to be Butland in goals, of course. Then at the back, we appear to have 5 defenders: Dujon Sterling, Emmanuel Fernandez, Jayden Magoma, Max Aarons and Nassar Giga seem to make up a back line. Whether Danny Rowe's gone for a back 5 approach, I don't know. I feel like Rangers fans are more suited to probably tell us. Then my prediction would be Barron and Diomande in the midfield with a 3 up top. Finlay, Curtis, Mikey Moore and Chamiti seems to be the lineup I would go for. So I think he's playing maybe a 5-2-3 if my prediction would be right. Chamiti obviously starting again is a huge talking point, which I'm sure we'll get into. On the Hibs team, they've got Salinger on goal, a back 3 of Hanley, Iredale and O'Hara. They've got Cadden and Obita as their 2 wing backs. They've got Barcelona, McGrath and Mulligan in the midfield with a front two of Kieran Bowen, Ellie Ewan, which I'm surprised he's dropped Martin Boyle, he's dropped Cleary to the bench, he's on there, Josh Campbell's on the bench, Joe Newell's obviously there, so he's made a few changes, but I'm more interested in the Rangers bench. Michael, Danny Rose dropped a few key players, James Tavernier and Nico Raskin are obviously the two big standouts that are on the bench. Gisama's on the bench as well. Interestingly enough, for what I can see, Bojan Majovski's not made the bench, and I don't know if he's injured. I've not heard anything personally about a Majovski injury, so I can only assume that he's maybe picked one up today, and that's why he's not on the team. But I have a very interesting team lineup selection for Ibrox.
For all we said about Celtic, it's the same at Ibrox as well. Okay, Rangers are getting victories, they're not playing very well. But yeah, that surprises me that Majowski's not in the Skarkin 11 because I know he's been in and out the team Norway as well. But I mean, when he signed for Rangers, you think, well, he's going to be scoring a little goal for Rangers, but he's not really get started at Ibrox.
No, not at all. And I can only assume if he's not even on the bench, he's probably picked up an injury, and I'm sure we'll hear more for that for Danny Rowe, either before or after the game, which obviously it's a bit gutting for Rangers, but what the question I'd ask you, Michael, is if Chamiti's getting in ahead of Danilo, what does that tell you what Danny Rowe thinks of Danilo? Because I don't know what he's seen in Chamiti these last few weeks to warrant him getting a start in such a big game, and you're right, it is a big game, by the way. It's a game where Rangers simply need to be above Motherwell by the end of the night. And the longer this keeps going on, that we can speak about Danny Rowe, how he's not really lost, he's not properly lost domestically in the league yet. The mere draws they're picking up is starting to turn Rangers fans a wee bit, but I still fully believe they're behind Danny. I think Danny's done a decent job since he came in, and I'll continue to say that. And I suppose the situation's slightly different in that I don't think Rangers have any board problems. I think the board admitted they made a mistake on Russell Martin. They're very open and communicative with their fans. That they actually care. They're trying to invest money in. I think now it's just about Rangers getting it right in January, and I think January will be such an important window for players leaving and players coming in, and it does send a big message that it has dropped James Tavernier, who has been a guy that has not really been dropped ever, to be honest with you. There's not many lineups that come out and his name's not there. Jack Butland takes the captain's armband for tonight, so it is a big game for Rangers. Another app's predicting that Rangers are going for the 4-2-3-1. I don't know if that's true. I suppose we'll need to wait and see when the teams come out. But in my opinion, it'll be a back five. I think he's playing tonight.
I think that when if the game was at Easter Road, you would maybe say that he's got James Tavernier because it's away from home, but you're playing at home, maybe not in front of 50,000, but a big capacity anyway for Rangers tonight. A weird game to have it on a Monday night, but that is a weird one as well. Maybe I'll come back to bite him after the game, or maybe he will get it right. Who knows? But it's really like a big risk about leaving your captain out altogether. And he's not even. Did you say he's on the bench? No.
Yeah, he's on the bench tonight.
Yeah, but even at that, he came on a few times last season from the bench, and it was a bit weird to see your club captain being on the bench and coming on by 15 minutes to go.
Aye, it is a very strange one. You don't often see that, to be honest with you. And look, I suppose it's a big night for Hibs as well, Michael. David Gray, as much as he's nowhere near getting the sack. Of course, he's not. He's done a good job. He's sitting in the top six right now. Where he wants them to be. He's only 3 points off a third. He's done a decent job. My argument would be, Michael, what is he like in these big games? This is a game that Hibs should be looking to go and take something for. They shouldn't be scared of playing Rangers. But it's such a big week, our next couple of weeks, should I say, for Hibs to play Rangers, then Dundee United, Taddy's, then the big Edinburgh derby. How many times is he going to let these big games slip away from him? If they lose tonight and then lose in Edinburgh derby, what does that say about his mentality with his squad in these big games? That they should be looking to beat. the likes of Hearts and your Rangers and Celtic, they should be looking to try and take points off them, because Hibs fans, I feel, had their club up to that stature. They had themselves up to try to be the third biggest club in the country. And they can't keep affording to lose games like this, especially the last time they went there. But I know they went in obviously they went in the cup and lost 2-0. But they've given Rangers a few close games and came out the rank side of Easter Road springs to mind in Danny Rowe's first game. Obviously, Danilo scored the goal in the opening. I think it was 5-10 minutes, and then obviously Rangers came out. It's another big game blown away by David Gray. So I know the night's big enough for Danny Rowe, and every game is under Danny Rowe right now. By the way, he's under pressure every game because he needs to start getting wins consistently, getting into January. But it's also a big night for Hibs as well.
Yeah, no, exactly, and you might put it in the same bracket as St Mirren and Celtic, in terms of like Hibs was St Mirren basically running Rangers close and Celtic just getting the win in the last minute, and it's the same kind of like comparison a wee bit, Robbie, when you look at it like that.
I suppose you're right. I mean, I feel like there's a bit, in terms of us playing Celtic and Hibs playing Rangers, I feel there's a bit less pressure on our shoulders to go out and get something at the game. You know what I mean? I feel like we can go and play without pressure and play without fear. Hibs tonight, they'll know the fans won't be happy if they don't pick something up for this game. And I think if you offered Hibs fans a point now, they'd maybe take it, depending on who you ask. But they just need to start winning these big games. And it's a time with Hibs where Michael, the day seemed so unified that they seem great. They brushed Falkirk aside 3-0 and a pretty convincing win. They've got a great group of players there, especially in attack. I mean, that front three, McGrath, Bowie and Ewan, that's a great three players to have leading the line for you. Not to mention guys like Josh Mulligan and obviously Cadden as well. So they've got a very good squad. They just need to start producing it more often on the pitch. And I think consistency's probably been David Gray's biggest problem and so far in his Hibs career.
What's your prediction tonight, Robbie, for the game against Rangers and Hibs? And by the way, I did think the game was on the telly tonight, but the more I think about it, because the final was at Hampden yesterday, they wasn't expecting 4 sets of fans in the site at the one time. And then Rangers were playing the Europe on first tonight, Robbie, so that's why the game would have been yesterday, but because of the cup final.
Aye, and I completely forgot Hearts game was on telly as well Sunday night, so aye, that's why it's not on the telly. But it's going to be an interesting game. In terms of scope of which I think I did say it on Friday in the comments. Obviously, I know Michael, I had to sort of leave and didn't get to fully say, but I'm going to change it for Friday. I believe I said 2 each at the time. I know Reagan. I think Reagan went for a Hibs win. I'm going to go the opposite side. I think I'm going to back Danny Rowe to win this game. I think it's going to be close now. I think there will be goals. I'm going to go 4-2 to Rangers.
Oh, 4-2. Okay, 2-1 Rangers tonight for me. So there you go. So that is our quarter kickoff. Let's talk about the games over the weekend. Well, I've got to start with the game at Piccoglie. The headline was getting made off the park today because the final score was Aberdeen 2, Kilmarnock 1. But today, Stuart Kettlewell has been sacked by Kilmarnock. And I think you would say in this one, Robbie, you're not very surprised.
No, and Mike, now I can come on the show and officially hold my hands up and apologise to Kilmarnock fans, because I said when Kettlewell signed for the club, I thought he was a good manager. I've always said that on the show. I thought he got unfairly treated at Motherwell, to be honest with you, and I still believe that. I do believe that the way he left and the position Motherwell were in, I thought he was actually doing a pretty decent job. Kilmarnock's went the complete flip side. They cannot win. They were in the game so long, I think up until the 78th minute. They were in the game against Aberdeen 1-0 up, looking like they could have actually went on and won. And maybe that would have been the turning point in the season, but as soon as Aberdeen scored, you just knew what way it was going to go. And it did end up going that way. They obviously get the penalty. Carlson makes no mistake, slots it away. And I think, Michael, you just knew after they scored that it was going to be for Kettlewell. And it's been a really, really, really poor time at Kilmarnock under him. The recruitment doesn't seem to have worked. They seem to have lost a lot of belief that, potentially McInnes installed into them while he was there. They just don't look the same team anymore that I remember seeing them playing Europe away at Cercle Bruges and thinking they've actually got a wee chance here at a decent run. That's completely went downhill, and it is going to be so interesting to speak about who's next. There's obviously one shout that I'm sure we'll mention at some point, obviously the sacking of Tony Dock at Ross County. He's been sort of touted already for the job. Whether he takes it or not, we'll wait and see. But I think, Michael, I think we can all say it had to come to an end on this occasion.
Do you think as well, I know I maybe said it on the show when you were on, Robbie, but when Stuart Kettlewell left the job at Motherwell, because, by the way, I think he was doing a decent job at Motherwell, but it was getting harshly critiqued by the fans, and Scarky got affecting his family and his mental health, when as soon as it affects your mental health, you've got to go. And then he got the Kilmarnock job. Do you think he kind of dived in too quickly after leaving Motherwell to go back into Kilmarnock? Because I think it was in the space of a few months he was back in the game. Do you think that's had anything to do with it, or do you think it's just getting work out at Kilmarnock?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Michael. I think it was far too soon. A lot of stuff affected Stuart Kettlewell at his time at Motherwell, and affected his family as well, which should never be happening at football. I think he maybe needed time away, especially after the interviews that came out, if you remember them, after he left Motherwell, where he was sort of speaking, and he was just sounding really aggressive sounding to the fans, and didn't really sound like he was in a state of manage, if you get me. It didn't sound like he was in the right headspace, and maybe he'll look back at it and go, maybe I liked me at that time. But let's not forget, Michael, since this guy came in, Kilmarnock went beaten up until September. They went the first month without losing a game. They picked up some pretty big wins along the way. They beat Dundee United. They obviously beat St Mirren 2-0 as well at Rugby Park. It wasn't like everything since he joined went doom and gloom, but I think a mix of that really, really bad winless run mixed with the way he speaks, and I think he does speak very robotic at times. You put all that together, and it's just all seemed to have went wrong since that 3-0 loss to Hearts. So I think it was a bit too soon for Kettlewell, to come back into management.
And I know that Aberdeen won the game 2-1. Aberdeen has just turned the corner, because that's one club that stuck by the manager when they came in. He won 13 games on the bounce. 8 lost to Celtic in the League Cup semi-final, went through a sticky spell. Ended the season well, very well actually, because they beat Celtic in the Scottish Cup. And I know that we were talking about Celtic there with Wilfred Nancy and Daniel at Rangers. Aberdeen with Jimmy Turlin, he's basically he's turned that ship around, and he's doing well. And the next game is Celtic Park on Sunday.
Well, as far as I can see, Michael, they actually play a Conference League game as well away at Sparta Prague, which, look, in the retrospect things, you're right, because it doesn't really matter what happens at Sparta Prague. They're out anyway, pretty much. I think it would take a miracle at this point for Aberdeen to go through. So, the next sort of big match, if you will, is at Celtic Park, and Tillian's got to go into that with some sort of confidence. And look, again, Michael, I'm here holding my hands up. I thought he was going to be sacked. I'm not going to lie to you, that run of games where he lost 6-0 to AEK Athens, I think, in Europe, and then lost at home to Hibs. That 2 games there, that's when I thought he was going to get sacked. And he did just come off the back of beating us in Paisley and beating Dundee 4-0. So it was sort of topsy and turny with his form. But I did think at one point he was going to get sacked. Now he's completely turned it around. I think he's shown what type of manager he is. He's a manager that doesn't get in. He likes to put his everything into this job, and I think he has. And by the way, Aberdeen have, in my opinion, Aberdeen have a better squad than I think most people realise. That it's a team full of really talented players. And I believe now they will push on and have a good season, picking up wins like that where, Michael, I don't know if you've seen the stats for this game, right? And I know football's not played on paper, but Aberdeen had 21 shots to Kilmarnock's 8. that is domination at its finest, and the fact that it took them 78 odd minutes to score was outstanding, to be honest. And look, that's what good teams do. Good teams find a way to win, even when it doesn't look like it. And it did look for a while like Kilmarnock were going to win, but Aberdeen stuck in and managed to get the 3 points. So full credit to him, and I'm sure he'll go to Celtic Park, Michael, with a keen eye to go and win, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. It's just amazing how we spent the first half of the season saying Jimmy's under big pressure at Aberdeen, and it's just can't get round it, you know. I think, look, I knew Aberdeen was going to kind of win the game yesterday, but I knew it was going to be a very difficult game, you know.
Aberdeen, I think, had to stick by a man. You know, they went through Jim Goodwin. That ended horribly with that, obviously, that defeated Darvo. And then the 6-0 battering at Hibs. They went through Barry Robson, which I don't know how fast I feel looking back at that, to be honest with you. And now you've got Tulane, and I think Tulane's probably the best out of them, Michael, if I'm being honest. I think he's a really decent coach. He's had these tough spells, but Aberdeen overall have had tough spells. You know, that's not exactly been an easy ride for them the last few years. So I think after that Scottish Cup, I think had they not lost that Scottish Cup, I think potentially when they were in that run earlier in the season, it probably would have got them sacked, to be honest with you. But just having that cup run and winning it, you know, you seen what it meant to us, Michael. You know, you can only imagine what it means to the people at Aberdeen. And now they've kicked on, and I do believe, and we'll obviously see how Wednesday goes, but heading into Celtic Park, there's no doubt in my mind that Aberdeen will go there and take something for the game.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Kamal, but also you mentioned Tony Dock as well. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I heard that news today, I said to you in the group chat about Tony Dock, maybe Ogzone's favourite to go back to Rugby Park.
I think you've got to assume he is, to be honest with you, Michael. I'm just quickly looking as well while we speak about it for the next Kilmarnock manager odds, actually, to see who's maybe on the list. Because, you know, there might be managers that we don't really hear about a lot. But I think Doherty, you've got to say, is probably up there. Just because, you know, I get it didn't work out at Ross County for him, and it was actually really poor. But he is a guy that gets Scottish football. He's a guy that, you know, I mean, he knows how to he knows how to get a job done sometimes. Looking back, I don't know how Ross County fans will be feeling about him, but I genuinely don't believe he's that bad of a manager getting beat 6-0. You know, I don't think he can be that bad. He's done it in the Premiership before. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Kilmarnock situation develops, I think.
Or you could maybe say that he would take Callum Davison there as well, because Callum Davison, I mean, look, both of them can stand out as managers or a managership team, if that's even a word. Maybe I've invented it on a Monday night. But I mean, Callum Davison's proven with St Johnstone by winning the cup double and all that, going to Ibrox, albeit it was during the COVID season and all the rest of it. But he actually done not a bad job at Queen's Park as well, Robbie.
Aye, you know, that is a guy, as you said, won a cup double with St Johnstone, deservingly so that season as well. You know, you just had that feeling to it, and they get some really, really big results. I don't really know where it's went wrong at Ross County. I don't watch too much of the Championship because it's no on the telly, like there's no way to watch it really, so I don't get to see much of what's actually going wrong at Ross County. But I think if you were to ask any fan, you know, that I think the mentality's through the flare, and I feel bad, Michael, because that's another team that looks like they could be heading into League One if they don't sort it out. And you've got to say, I think Gordon Duncan said it the other day, that could be one of the biggest wage bills heading into League One League One's ever seen, potentially, to be honest. Just talking about the next manager, there's already some names on the list. Some names that are, in my opinion, ridiculous. I mean, the one that stands out, John McGlynn. I don't think he's ever going to leave the Fall Cup job to take a Kilmarnock the way they're gone. You've got Barry Ferguson making the list in at 20 to 1. Which is interesting. You've got Robbie Nielsen on the list. You've got Stephen Naismith on there, who's obviously in the Scotland job. I don't think he'll be taking it. Well, obviously, see how that develops in the next few days and see who sort of appears on the list. But I think it's important that, that while we're on Ross County, I think it's important both teams get it right. And I think you could find Stuart Kettlewell makes his way back to Dingwall. And, let's not forget he was there once before. Maybe he
Yeah.
makes his way to try and save the club. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he knows how to. We'll need to wait and see. But as it's never. Let's just say it's never nice to see a manager get sacked. It's like anybody losing their job. You don't want to see somebody lose their job. So to both clubs, I mean, good luck to them in the manager search. I'm just lucky we're not in that situation.
Yeah, it would be funny if Tony Docherty finds his velvet Kilmarnock and Scoot Kettlewell goes up to Ross County as well. But you never say never in Scottish football. You mentioned John McGlynn there. Let's talk about Falkirk. It was at Spot the Ball on Saturday night, tried to see who the ball was, Robbie, because at one point I didn't thought it was football. I thought it was water polo at times in the game. Falkirk now Hearts 2. Hearts just keep churning out these results away from home or at home or whatever. But okay, Hearts were you wouldn't say they were outstanding. They got the job done, but I thought Falkirk were pretty poor on Saturday.
Aye, it seems maybe they've taken a hit now since being back up, and that's 4 without a win. Obviously, in that 4, sorry, I should mention they got a draw at Rangers and Motherwell. So, in retrospect, it's actually not that bad, but they've just lost to both Edinburgh clubs. I think what you'll find, Michael, is they might tail off a bit now. I don't think everything was going to be plain sailing for coming back up. I think there will be points this season that John McGlynn struggles because that's the nature of the Premiership. It's so unpredictable. But everything goes to Hearts in this game. But we spoke about in the show Friday night about Hearts had to get the win. There was no point in going to Celtic and winning and then going to Falkirk and dropping points. They had to go and get the win. And after that first goal, I'm not going to lie to you, after it went in, I thought it was going to be a bigger result, to be honest. Obviously, that didn't happen. There was only one other goal in the game, and it was some goal, that first goal. I mean, I know it ended up being a tap-in for Braga in the end, but I mean, that shot for Shankland, if that went in, man, it would have been one of the goals of the season. Had it gone in, and then obviously Kingsley gets the header in the 77th minute, and that just sort of kills any momentum that Hearts had, or Falkirk had, sorry. And look, there's no shame in losing games in the Premiership, especially when it's your first season back up. And Falkirk can be so proud of where they're sitting already. They're sitting 3 points off the top 6 right now after 17 games. I don't think any Falkirk fan would have dreamed of that happening, to be honest with you, in the first season. So they've got a lot, there's still a lot of football to be played next. They've got Kilmarnock, which in Falkirk's eyes is probably a must-win game, but do we really know what type of Kilmarnock we're going to be getting? Who's going to be in charge? I think they did announce an interim, but I can't remember who it was, so I'm not too sure. But that's a game they'll be expecting to go and win.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Hearts next 2 games is that I think they've got Rangers at Kincastle and Hibs at East Kilroge, is that right? Or
yeah, that definitely is coming up. I think that's the next 2. Yeah, so Rangers at 1:30 at Tynecastle next Sunday, and then Edinburgh Derby the following Sunday at 12:30.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because I was looking forward to seeing Falkirk on Saturday night. As I say, I think that John McGlynn would be pretty upset with his team performance because I didn't think they performed well. But saying that, you've got to give a lot of credit for Hearts going away there, going on a Plaskett Park and getting another win.
Aye, and a clean sheet as well, which will really help them. You never want to lose goals, so that'll boost the confidence a wee bit. And Michael, if they win the next 2 games, and depending on what happens there at Celtic in the next couple of weeks, we're looking at a serious title charge now. And as much as all the Hearts fans and Graham will not be wanting to say that, yeah, because there's still a long way to go, there will be. If Hearts beat Rangers and beat Hibs, that is massive, and it really does mount the challenge that they can go on and do this, because in the space of a few weeks they would have beaten Celtic. If they beat Rangers, they would have beaten Rangers and beaten Hibs. That's a sign of a team that can win a league. That's a sign of a team that can beat anybody in the league. So it's a big couple of games for Derek McInnes. And look, the one team that have been probably giving me stick the mess for saying Robinson's the best manager in Scotland probably is Hearts, because as you know, Hearts fans are sort of back in McInnes right now. If it wins the league this season, I'll happily again. I'll come on here and hold my horn up. It feels like a lot of humble pie these days, Michael. But I will come on here and hold my horns up because it'll be a terrific achievement. But we've got a long way before that. It's such a big couple of games you feel for Hearts.
Yeah, I've been eating a lot of humble pie over the season, Robbie, so I wouldn't worry about it as well. Let's go to the most exciting game of the weekend. Dundee United 0, Motherwell 0. And I think, Robbie, on paper, I think this point would be suited to Motherwell.
Aye, you'd probably say so. I've not seen much of the highlights for this game because there's no much to watch, Michael, in a 0-0. I suppose for Jim Goodwin, it's better than a loss. It's better than what he has been getting served up. You know, they went to they hosted Rangers, and get such a draw. It probably should have been a win, to be honest with you, had that penalty not been given. They then played us and didn't look up too much. So they had to get something out of Motherwell, and considering how well Motherwell play these days and how good Jens has done, it's probably a good point for both teams. I think Dundee United may, and I think Dundee United need to take confidence into playing Celtic because that is probably for me a big game for Jim Goodwin and himself. You know, if Goodwin loses that, what point do the fans completely turn away? But Motherwell, I think, will continue business as usual. They've got Dundee at home next. I know Stephen Presley likes his rooms, Michael, but I don't imagine they'll be getting 3 points against Motherwell, to be honest with you, at Fir Park. So I think Motherwell continue as business as usual. And Jens, again, right under the radar, he's sitting up in third. You know, again, we speak about it all the time. Hearts obviously getting all the media praise right now. But Jens did Velasquez doing one hell of a job there.
Yeah, and I said to you about managers as well. With a lesser budget early on, I said to you about Murrow, but Jens Lasko at Murrow's doing a brilliant job as well, and signed one or two decent players as well. They play Celtic in a few weeks at Fir Park, so that's going to be a difficult game for Celtic because Celtic's always find it difficult going to Fir Park, but he's building a not bad team there.
Aye, Motherwell have a big 3 games, obviously, after next week, they're enough. They've got Dundee at home, which I think Jens will be expecting them to win, but they've actually got a big 4 after that. I've got Rangers away, Celtic at home, St Mirren at home, and then Hibs away, so that's going to be 4 big games sort of between the end of December and into the new year. That's going to be a big challenge for the Motherwell players, but Michael, I mean, at what point, you know, if Motherwell went and won all 4 games, right, realistically, let's just say we come back on the show. When did they play Hibs? The 10th of January. So say we were back on the Sunday or Monday on the 11th or 12th of January, and Motherwell had beaten Rangers, Celtic, St Mirren and Hibs. At what point do you start touting them for third place? You know what I mean? Like, at what point do we start thinking Motherwell might actually mount a challenge here into third? I mean, you never know what can happen. Obviously, that's a long way away, but Jens will be enjoying this right now. I know he's on a big undefeated streak, but what is that? 8 games, I think, that unbeaten. He'll be loving it.
Let's speak about the last game of the weekend, Robbie. And we thought, well, what do we know? We thought, well, this game's going to be a damp squib. But it was interesting. But there was 4 goals in this game. Livingston 2, Dundee 2.
With a red card as well, added on top of that for McGowan. Mike, I'm not going to lie to you, when I was sitting watching these games, I'd see when I seen it was 2-0 to Dundee in 18 minutes, I honestly thought, right, at what point do you just sack Martindale? Because Kilmarnock have just sacked Stuart Kettlewell, who's actually get more points than David Martindale in the league. Yet, you know, Livingston will still stick behind David, which I suppose is a topic for another day. But that seemed like an entertaining game. Stephen Presley would have been absolutely delighted with the start. I'm sure he was probably dreaming about Yandanda putting one in the back of the net the night before, to be honest. I thought he looked alright again, to be fair. And after 18 minutes, you're probably thinking, right, how many is Dundee going to get here? Because Livingston just didn't look like they had the character. They didn't look like they've got it in them this season to kind of claw back a result. But fair play to them because they dug in, you know, and managed to get back in the game, get a result. I think that will probably hurt Dundee more than Livingston, to be honest. I think Livingston will take a lot of character for that fight. I know they're coming to Paisley next. I don't expect them to win, to be honest with you. You just never know with this league, though. But I think that will take a bit of a knock on Presley's confidence, because if they'd won that, you know, the talk on this show tonight would have been, all right, Livingston are going down. That's what it would have been. It would have been Livingston are going down. They don't have any fight. They don't have any character. Their time's already up, basically. That's what I would have been thinking anyway. But they fought back in, they get a draw, and I'm sure they'll carry that out next week to try and cause an upset in Paisley, and then they've got Celtic as well. So it's a tough couple of weeks coming up for Martindale.
Do you think that, gives a quick word on Livingston, like when we always say when the team comes back up to the league, they find it difficult, but have you found it very surprising? Because I mean, Livingston's only been out the division for for one season, and but before that, Livingston was a stuffy team to play against, whether it's away from home or at home.
Aye, well, look, Michael, I'm still going to hate playing them. We play them like I think we played them 4 times in the space of 2 months. Like, something mental like that. I just never liked playing Livingston. They're absolutely horrible to play. I think you see the difference between them and Falkirk since, you know, both teams came up. I think Falkirk have adjusted to the league a lot better, and I'm slightly surprised at that. I really did. I praised a lot of what David Martindale built over the summer. I thought he signed a lot of players. They signed a lot of players that we maybe didn't know much about. But, you know, he had a big squad. They had time to experiment with it. And I thought, I can't remember what game it was. I think right at the start of the season, they surely went undefeated in the first 2. They drew at Kilmarnock and beat Falkirk. And at that point, I was thinking, you know, David Martindale's going to have a good season here. I think he's really adjusting back to life. And I know they've picked up a few points, a few draws in recent weeks. But, Michael, to ask you, I mean, look, I can't even count how many games that is without a win. But at what point do we actually start speaking about Livingston sacking him? Because it's not good enough. It really is not good enough.
I know, maybe budgets comes into it as well, but I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the time, Robbie, that we always speak about managers getting the sack if they're just in the door, if they haven't won 8 to 10 games, they're out the door as well. But I mean, when it comes to David Martindale, it seems to be the opposite. It doesn't matter if he's getting beat 8 or 10 games, he's still in the job. Maybe, I don't know about you, maybe that comes down to the fan base, because if they had a bigger fan base, would be demanding and Martindale getting sacked.
I think so. You know, I do follow a few Livingston fans. They do want him. You know, I don't think there's any hiding away for that now that they don't want him in the job. I think his time's been in past. The 15 games without a win, I've just counted. That is a record against any other manager in this league sacked. Well, unless you're Stephen Robinson, you've just won a cup, but that's a different story. But seriously, it gets any other manager sacked by him, because it seems like David Martindale's was the key to Livingston in their stadium. It just seems like he can do whatever he wants. And I tell you now, I don't back Livingston to win any of the next 4 games. They've got St Mirren, Celtic, Dundee United and Hearts. I don't see them getting a result in any of their games, and then they've got St Mirren and then Kilmarnock. So I really don't see David Martindale picking it up in the next sort of 5 games. And you've got to admit, if they did lose the next 5 and then go to 20 games without a win, surely they need to pull the trigger on them and just call it a day. Because I can understand sticking by him because there's maybe no other option and there's maybe no better option. But at one point, you've just got to sack him and get it away. And I still, as much as it's bonkers to say, Michael, because he's no 1 in 15 and he's on such a poor run of form, David Martindale does deserve a bigger job. He deserves a chance at a bigger job because he's done so much hard work with Livingston early years. And
maybe the Kilmarnock one.
Aye, you never know. Maybe he does take a Kilmarnock job. I mean, he loves a wee plastic pitch, doesn't he? So you just don't know. But I mean, whether David wants to take a break for football management after this, I mean, he has been working hard for about 3-4 years now. Maybe he wants a break for managing for a bit, we don't know. But I would say at one point, my God, you have just got to call it how it is and get him sacked, because I'm all for game managers' time, but 15 games without a win in the Premiership's unacceptable at any club.
There you go. So, that is your weekend. Robbie won't forget this weekend, but not because he's been on with me twice on a Friday and a Monday night, but because something really happened yesterday. St Mirren won the cup, beating Celtic 3 goals to 1. We'll be back on Wednesday night for maybe the fallout from Dundee United Celtic game at Tallaghays. Will be on at 10 o'clock on Wednesday night. Don't forget, if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe the YouTube channel. It is the Scottish Football Zone, and you can also find us on TikTok, where Robbie and Regan is updating it every day, and also you can follow us on Spotify. It's funny enough, the Scottish Football Zone, so you can follow us on Spotify, TikTok, and like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It is the Scottish Football Zone. Thanks to Robbie. Thanks to everybody who's watched the show. We'll be back on Wednesday night at 10 o'clock after Dundee United against Celtic.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.